everybody. I'd like to welcome you to Pleyto. We have special guests, Janice Ramseier and Ed Buntz. They're local rice and Hesperia, and they manage and maintain this cemetery for the area. And this is Janice Ramseier. She's going to come and give us a little talk. Isn't it on?
Yeah, it's on.
The disadvantages of being a new lady.
Excuse
me.
Tell us about it's the alternative.
We're all there, or many of us.
It should be on.
Okay. How does that sound? Am I getting out?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, well,
We gotta hold it close. You gotta hold it close.
forgive me, being an old lady, I have to have some notes, so. And I really think it's a privilege. Thank you so much for inviting me to be here today and to say a few words to you about our cemetery. In the maps, as far back as 1795 or 1796, there was notations of Pleyto, and it was Pleito was the spelling they used then. There was a land grant to Jose Antonio Chavez in 1845, and it remained in his family until it was purchased by the Pinkertons in 1860s. Now, if any of this is erroneous, it is books that I've consulted, so the blame can go on me. But the Pinkerton is credited for laying out the town of Pleyto, and in its heyday, it had a stage shop, of course. It had a blacksmith shop, a hotel, a saloon, a dance hall, a post office, and eventually a cemetery. Now, if you're from Lockwood, if you were looking at the town, but kind of laid up and down the river, you would be elevated right in back of the town, kind of toward the west, was where the cemetery was located. Let's see, in 1884, the name of the cemetery was changed from Pleito to Pleyto. So I thought that was interesting. Then in the 1860s, of course, the Homestead Act came to being, and there was quite a development in Bryson, Hesperia, Lockwood, and all the areas that were available for homesteading, of course. So the town thrived. And then as the railroads started their expansion south within Salinas Valley, of course, the stage stop wasn't needed anymore. Mm-hmm. And the town began kind of a spiral downward. And of course, when the autos were invented in the early 1900s, mobility to the bigger towns was pretty easy. So gradually the little town went into disrepair. And in 1925, the post office was closed. My folks purchased the Cantinas Ranch in 1950, which is nearby. And I can remember attending a couple of different burials at the old cemetery location. Then in the early 60s, conversations about a dam across the San Antonio River began to come into fruition. And of course, the engineering and permission and all of that began. With cooperation with the Army and Monterey County Flood Control, there was an agreement for this land, where we are, to be reassigned as a Pleyto Cemetery above the high water mark, and the area became known as Cemetery Cove. When the sites were laid out, there's 700 and some grave sites here now. 300 and some of those are either occupied or reserved. I thought it was interesting, there's a complete list of the graves that were moved, where they were moved to. Some went to King City, some went to Paso Robles, even one was in San Luis and another one in Templeton. So we have those records. So if anybody's out in this Pleyto Cemetery looking for relatives that they don't find, perhaps they'd be some of those in the records that were moved to other locations. Let's see, what else was I going to tell you?
Janice, do you have some relatives here?
Probably as married relatives, probably 50-some relatives here. Yeah. Let's see. When the whole process of moving the graves came up, the Monterey County Flood Control moved all of those graves. And I may have been repeating myself, but in looking at the different burials and the times, I only find one that was buried in the 1800s. And I know in all likelihood the unknown grave sites that you would see wandering around the cemetery here are probably those that were so old that they were deteriorated, and they moved parts of caskets and the remaining bodies, but they're known as unknown. And there's a fancy ironwork up there, so it shows the descendants valued their ancestors and wanted to preserve their memories, but that site too is unknown, so it's kind of sad.
Hey, Janice, we'll walk around.
Yeah. Just kind of go around in a
So,
circle.
yeah, show 'em, and just say the filled red block. This is the current map with the plots, and so the red rectangles have a person in there, and the red slash means it's been reserved. So you'll have an idea of how large it is.
You know, our little cemetery became famous kind of in 19, September 30th of 2023. There was headlines on some of the papers because Glenn Harris, who is a brother and a son of the Harrises that are in this first slot there, he joined the Army Air Corps in 1940, and he was stationed at the Philippine Air Base, and it was eventually captured by the Japanese. And he was a participant in the Bataan Death March. He died in, let's see, I think it was July 7th. Yeah, his date of death is listed as July 25th, 1942, and his body joined unidentified grave sites in the Philippines. And so grave number 225 had many, many bodies. And eventually, after the war was over and the United States took over, of course, they took the remains to a mausoleum in the Philippines. Those that were able to be identified were, and those that weren't were reinterred in the Philippines as a memorial for American servicemen. Then when DNA testing advanced, those remains were flown to Manila, the Hickam Air Base in Hawaii. And there, ultimately in 2018, Harris body remains were identified. There was 3 different types of DNA testing that I understand that were used. So eventually, Glenn got to come home. There was on September, I think it was the 23rd of September 30th of 2023, he was reburied here at the cemetery in full military honors. Now, some of you might have been here. It was very impressive. The only sadness I had about it is the fact that his uncle, his historian uncle Wayne, who most of you knew, wasn't still alive to observe it. But yeah, his brother. I'm sorry. Yeah. That's about all I have to add. And our three-member board, Ed is part, Jamie Smith is a part. We tried to pass these responsibilities down to relatives, but who knows what's going to happen in the future. I have a relative, Cindy, that's probably going to take my place, and hopefully it can be preserved. Our goal the cemetery is maintained just by family members. So the goal of most of us is by Memorial Day, the cemetery is clean. Flags are put out for the veterans and flowers at the different grave sites. But you're a little early. So this is probably the natural way that the Pleyto Cemetery looked in the 1800s. So thank you very much. And if anybody has questions, I'm sure Ed or myself can answer.
We have another speaker.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, if you do have questions for Janice, go ahead and ask them. Connie?
Why the change of the name? The spelling of the name?
You know, that I bet some of the historians here can answer that. Because why the Pleyto was the old original Pleyto spelling, and it's Pleyto. I don't know why.
I don't know, but from my historical research, I would say that Pleito was probably related to a native Salinan name, and the EYTO was more Americanized pronunciation, simpler for people. It's like, how do you
Like
I before E, except that, you know. So that's what I would guess.
Thank you.
As English came, we pronounce things differently and spell them like they're pronounced. So that, and there's another road, Sapewa, and that's true. There has so many pronunciations and spellings, and it's one of the roads here in Bryson. So we also thank you, Janice. This was so interesting. We're gonna we have one more of our board member, David Savoy. Savoy wants to tell a little bit about his connection.
We have 4 generations of family here, and I will also be here at some point next to my great-great-grandfather. And just real briefly, he's buried here along with his son, and then his son's son, and right up here. And so I do have photos of him and of my his father, who was my great-great-great-grandfather. And he came from Scotland via Indiana in 1860 to Santa Clara. Hence, the Native American side of our family comes in. James Forbes lived in Santa Clara, and he and his wife had adopted a Salinan, 100% Salinan girl. And my third great-grandfather married her and brought her to Halone, and they raised these children, and hence that's how the Salinan, that part comes into
What
our
is his
family.
name, David? Your third?
That would be Lewis McCormick. He was a constable at Halone. Was very close to the Duttons and to the Forbes family. Eventually, James, my Native American great-great-great-grandmother's brother moved, and he frequented the Dutton Hotel and had stories, and you've probably heard of the name of Forbes. So that's how that came to be. And Lewis McCormick, real quickly, and his wife had 4 children, and there was Clara, Benito, Raphael, and Frank, who's buried here, and I'll be right next to him. But anyway, they in turn, Clara had married his daughter Clara married a Laguna, so hence the Laguna Ranch comes into play, and then they had Vicky Laguna, and she married into the Diggs family, and then from that they had Elvira, and Elvira's son Jeffrey's right over here, and his father was a Parlet. So I don't know. It just goes. It's incredible. Anyway, that's my
Well, thank you, David.
come with
Mention the
me.
book. Mention the book that has all this information.
Oh
His
yes, I
mother
have a
wrote.
copy of the book. It's my mom wrote the book, The Ancestors Speak, and then also The Salt of the Earth has my family in that. And I brought them just in case you want to see who we're looking at. If we look at the grave, then you can be able to put a face to the spot.
The Salt of the
Thank you.
The Salt of the Earth book in Nasiatone Museum sells it.
Yes, she's got them at Nacetone. That's
Yeah, you can go
correct.
to the museum, find. We'll take a little bit of time to walk around. This is a photo of one of the graves that was not moved from the old Pleyto Cemetery to the new. This is Colonel Corporal John McBride. Apparently they could not notify or get permission to move his grave from the family, so he is still under the lake with a couple of other the Pinkerton children, and they have cement over the top. And on SAVHA's YouTube channel, you can go and look at the presentation on what's under the lake. But it's that they put the cement over there over it so that they wouldn't float up. Anyway, well, thank you. Take a few minutes to walk around and
I have by name the listing by plot if you're interested. No, just
all right. Well,
I just got the list of the names and where they are.